What's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today doing a branded Predaplant deck profile. So I'm really excited to do this one for you guys because this deck is an extremely powerful deck that fusion summons out all sorts of amazing fusion monsters to go in for game. I've included some really spicy tech cards in this build for you guys, so without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards. Like in your name description of a single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Predaplant Orthus Scorpio. This card is one of the most powerful cards in the entire deck, because if this card is normal or special summon, you can send a monster from your hand to the graveyard to special summon a Predaplant monster from your deck, except another copy of this card, which is a really cool ability to bring out cards like your copy of Darling Cobra, so you can search any fusion spell that you want. We then play 3 copies of Biblisp. Biblisp is definitely a 3-of in the build because this card is a crazy powerful effect. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you get to add a Predaplant monster from your deck to your hand, except another copy of this card, which is a really cool ability to be able to get this card in the graveyard. And if a monster with a Predacounter is on the field, you can special summon this card from the graveyard but banish it when it leaves the field, which is super easy to put Predacounters on cards, with cards like Dracostapelia being able to put them on opponents' monsters, which is really easy to bring this card back from the graveyard. We then play a single copy of Darling Cobra. Darling Cobra is what we usually summon off our copy of Orthus Scorpio, with a really cool ability if it's special summoned by a card effect of a Predaplant monster. Then you can add a polymerization spell or a fusion spell card from your deck to your hand, meaning this card can help us instantly get to our copy of Branded Fusion, which is amazing. We then play a single copy of Sundew. Sundew is great as a 1-of in the build, but you only need a single copy of Sundew. This card has a really cool ability that monsters with Predacounters on them that are used as fusion material are treated as dark monsters, which is a great effect. And during your main phase, you can fusion summon 1 dark fusion monster from your extract using monsters on the field and monsters from the hand, field, and or monsters with Predacounters on your opponent's side of the field as fusion material, which is an insane effect to be able to use with this card, that you can use your opponent's monsters that have Predacounters on them. We then play a single copy of Buffalicula. Buffalicula is really good as a 1-of in the deck because it has an insane pendulum effect that during your main phase, you can fusion summon 1 dark fusion monster from your extract using monsters from your hand or field as fusion material, basically being a polymerization, which is a crazy powerful effect. It also has the ability, if this card is sent to the grave or added to your extract face up, because it was used as a fusion material, you can add 1 face up dark pendulum monster from your extract back to your hand. We then play a single copy of Triantis. Triantis is also really good as a 1-of in the deck because this card has the ability, if this card is sent to the graveyard or added to the extract face up, because it was used as fusion material, you can actually choose a monster on the field up to the number of monsters that you control and place 1 Predacounter on each of them, and if you do, any of those monsters that are level 2 or higher become level 1 as long as they have Predacounters on them, which is a really cool ability. This card also has a pretty good pendulum effect that while this card is in your pendulum zone, if you fusion summon a dark fusion monster, you can also use monsters in your pendulum zone as material for that fusion summon, which is a really cool effect. We then play a single copy of Stay Sailor. Stay Sailor is really good as a 1-of in the build because it's our light target in the deck. And this card has a really insane effect that basically, if this card is sent to the graveyard by a card effect, you can send a level 5 or lower plant monster from your deck to the graveyard, which is usually going to be your copy of your Biblisp, so you can get a search, which is a great effect. We then also play 2 copies of Aluber. Aluber is also a great summon in the deck because this card will let you add on normal or special summon a branded spell or trap from your deck to your hand, which will instantly get to our copy of Branded Fusion. Plus, we can summon this card out to our side of the field with Branded Opening. We then play 2 copies of Fallen of Albaz. Fallen of Albaz is basically walking super polymerization, but you're going to use this card a lot in the deck to help you go in for your fusion plays with Branded Fusion. We then play a single copy of Destiny Hero Celestial and a single copy of Destiny Hero Dasher. We're also playing Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer in the extract and Fusion Destiny, so we can go in for our Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer, but it's such a powerful combo to go in for Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer that I just had to include these cards in the deck, because you basically just use your copy of your Fusion Destiny as the last card in your hand when you're fusion summoning and go in for Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer, because it will lock you into Dark Heroes for the rest of the turn, but if it's the last card you're activating in your hand, you're just getting a bonus boss monster. Plus, if we do draw any of these cards, we can still use them as fusion material, but they're still really good in this build. We then also play 3 copies of Ash Blossom. Ash Blossom is just a fantastic hand trap just to stop your opponent from touching the deck. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to start with a single copy of Foolish Burial. Foolish Burial is a really good one-of to get the exact monster you want in your graveyard, like your copy of Bibleist. We then play a single copy of Instant Fusion. Instant Fusion's great as a one-of in the deck, so we have a really good Instant Fusion target, the Predaplant level 5, that we can actually summon off this card's ability. We then play a single copy of Branded in Red. Branded in Red is a great one-of to be able to set to your side of the field and go in for a copy of Guardian Chimera during your opponent's turn to let you target a Despia monster or Fallen of Albaz in your graveyard and add it to your hand. Then it lets you fusion summon a level 8 or higher fusion monster from your extract by banishing fusion materials listed on it from your hand or field, but it cannot attack any directly this turn, which is totally fine because we're usually going to activate this card during our opponent's turn to make Guardian Chimera. We then play 2 copies of Predapractice. Predapractice is great as a 2-of in the build. I don't feel like you need 3 copies in this deck because this card is just amazing to let you special summon a Predaplant monster from your hand, then add a Preda monster or Preda card from your deck to your hand, except another copy of Predapractice, and also for the rest of the turn, after this card resolves, you cannot special summon monsters from the extract except fusion monsters, which is totally fine because that's pretty much all we're summoning anyways. We then play 3 copies of Branded Fusion. Branded Fusion is a definite 3-of, just to help us fusion summon to all sorts of amazing boss monsters, and it's just such a powerful fusion spell to let us fusion summon using materials directly from our deck to help us fusion summon out all sorts of crazy cards. We then play 3 copies of Fusion Destiny. Fusion Destiny is a really cool 3-of in the deck to help us go in for a copy of Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer, but you always want to make this card the last card you activate in your hand because you cannot special summon monsters except Dark Hero monsters after this card resolves, so always activate this card last. We then play 3 copies of Super Polymerization. Super Poly is definitely a 3-of just to break your opponent's board, but also go into a bunch of really cool fusion monsters in this deck. We then play 3 copies of Branded Opening. Branded Opening is really good because you just discard a card and then special summon a Looper from the deck, which is going to let us search our copy of Branded Fusion to go in for all of our plays. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps. So for the traps, we're going to start with a single copy of Predaplanting. Predaplanting is a great 1-of in the deck, but you only really need a single copy of this card. It lets you send a Predaplant monster from your deck to the graveyard, and then place 1 Preda counter on each face-up monster on the field, and if you do, any of those monsters that are level 2 or higher become level 1, as long as they have a Preda counter on them. And if you fusion summon a dark monster while this card's in the graveyard, except during the damage step, you can banish this card from the grave, target 1 monster on the field, and destroy it, which is a really cool ability just to target a card on the field and destroy it with this card's ability. I absolutely love this card as a 1-of, and it just helps out so much in the deck. We then also play 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. Infinite Impermanence is really cool as a 3-of in the build, just to be able to use this card to basically just stop your opponent's monster effects and also lock down entire columns of spells and traps. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, guys, we're going to start off with a single copy of Starving Venom Predapower Fusion Dragon. This card is a crazy powerful boss monster that's just really, really good to be able to summon out to her side of the field. It just requires a dark fusion monster plus a fusion monster to make this card, and it's always treated as a Predaplant card. And as the ability once per turn, when a card or effect is activated, quick effect, you contribute 1 monster or a monster on the field with a Preda counter on it, and if you do, negate the activation, which is a really cool ability that you can actually tribute your opponent's monsters if they have Preda counters on it for this card's ability. And if this fusion summon card that you control is sent to the graveyard by an opponent's card, you can actually target 1 dark monster in your graveyard and special summon it, meaning this card floats into other cards, which is really good. We then play a single copy of Trip Overtrum. This card is really good as a super poly target. It's just a fantastic card because it gains attack equal to the total of original attack of all monsters on the field with Preda counters on it, so this card can get absolutely huge in this deck, especially with the amount of Preda counters we can put on cards. And then when your opponent special summons a monster from the extract, while you control this fusion summon card, quick effect, you can negate the summon, and if you do, destroy that monster. And if your opponent controls a monster with a Preda counter on it, you can actually special summon this card from the grave in defense position, so it's really sticky for your opponent to deal with this card. We then play a single copy of Dracostapelia. Dracostapelia is just really good in the deck as a one-of, because this card distributes Preda counters on your opponent's monsters, and also has a walking negate. We then play a single copy of Chimeraflasia. Chimeraflasia is just a good option to be able to make in this deck, and it's a really good card in this build overall, because it's just insane. We then play a single copy of the level 5 Predaplant monster. This card is our instant fusion target for the deck, which is why we just play a single copy. With the ability, if this card is fusion summoned, you can add a Predaplant monster or a Preda spell or trap from your deck graveyard or face up from your extract to your hand. You can also target a monster your opponent controls with a Preda counter on it, or a monster that you control and tribute it, and if you do, special summon a Predaplant monster from your deck, which is an insane effect. We then play 2 copies of Mirror Jade. Mirror Jade's really good in this deck as a 2-of, because it's just easy to spot remove cards off the field. 1 copy of Lubellion. Lubellion's also amazing in this deck, and a card we're usually summoning off our copy of Branded Fusion, because this card actually shuffles the materials back to help us fusion summon, which is amazing, but it does require dark monsters, which is why we usually summon out this card. We then play 2 copies of Albion, 1 copy to summon with Stay Sailor, and 1 copy to be able to send off of our Mirror Jade's ability. But this card is basically like Miracle Fusion. It has to banish the materials to summon out its fusion monster, but this card is really good as a 2-of in the deck. We then play a single copy of Destiny Hero, Destroyer, Phoenix Enforcer. This card is a pop and is really good because it comes back every single turn and is really hard for your opponent to deal with, and it's an amazing card overall in the deck. We then play a single copy of Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. This card is a great super poly target, but overall just a fantastic boss monster to make in this deck. And it's a really cool card to be able to play in Predaplant, where this card actually belongs. We then play a single copy of Guardian Chimera. You're gonna make this card with Branded in red during the opponent's turn to get us either a draw 2 and a pop 1, or a pop 1 and a draw 2, which is just amazing about this card. And then finally we play a single copy of Garua and a copy of Mud Dragon, because these cards are really good super poly targets. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. This deck is super fun to be able to play. If you guys have never played Predaplant before, you should definitely give this branded version a try, because it's really fun to be able to play, and I absolutely love this deck. I did consider playing the Edgeant package in this deck as well, so if you guys want to try that out, you definitely can, but this deck is super fun as is. You can change it out for the Fusion Destiny package if you want to, because it's a good option, but I really like the Fusion Destiny package in this build. So that's gonna do for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.